Hey guys, we're back with another episode of the Matt Savage Show. I'm Matt Savage, your host. This is Matthew Hancock, our fantastic commentator and amazing co-host. I don't know if that title even makes sense. Co-host, you're about as
I'm today's guest.
But today we got a couple of topics we're going to talk about. I guess we can fire off with the results of the owner finance deal that we started. And if you watch the episode a couple of episodes back, we had embarked on a owner finance property contract for deed, and the results as of today are fantastic. We actually own the property now, but this did not come as easy as we thought it would, although we are extremely excited. And now at this point it's a little different than just buying the contract for deed. We actually own the equity in the property and own the property fee simple. And Matthew here today is going to explain some of the details that we on the difference of ownership from the contract for deed and owner of the property now fee simple. Matthew, you want to?
Well, first off, congratulations on you purchasing another house.
Thank you, sir. And that wouldn't have been possible without absolutely none of this wouldn't have been possible without you. You and I worked together. We coordinated, yes. and we took a aggressive stance. And
we're both licensed professionals. Matt's a realtor, and I'm an attorney, and together we were able to handle the all the legwork and all the paperwork. And in that combination together got the deal done, actually.
Yeah.
And we make a pretty good team.
Yes.
Actually, I mean, the proof's in the pudding. Matt was able to acquire the property and acquire it at a very reasonable price. This is kind of a rare deal. It was an unusual deal in that Matt was able to purchase the buyer's interest in the property. There's a fellow buying a house under a contract for deed, which is a kind of a rent-to-own deal that they have here in Texas, where you put some money down, you agree to make payments. If you make the last payment, the seller is obligated to give you a deed at the end of the deal. If you miss a payment, the seller has the remedy of eviction. They go to the Justice of the Peace Court and file an eviction and have you put out of the property. They'll send the constable out and remove you. So the seller had some life changes in his circumstances in life, and he was ready to move. And he wanted to get out of town. It was time to get out of Dodge. So Matt, he's one of the neighbors on the street. Matt was able to talk to him and say, well, how about you sell me your house? And he says, well, I'm buying it on a contract for deed. He says, well, let me see the contract. And then Matt did the right thing and immediately sent it to his lawyer.
You have to have an attorney to look at these contracts, because there's the way these contracts are written are there's a standard way to write these contracts, but this one was not written standard, and you want to know, you just have to have the professional advice where, and that's something I do want to touch on too, not to interrupt you, Matthew, but I do think it's extremely important to touch on why it's important to have a team of professionals that draft these documents from the beginning, and not on the back end, because there can be a lot of risk when you go to Office Max or Office Depot and think that you're downloading a document that probably applies in a different state. And you guys fill out this document because it's a simply written document, and you think that everything that is not included in the document, then that means that it cannot be applicable. However, it's the exact opposite. Whatever is not included in the document in the state of Texas, then it's open season on legal issues and
yeah, I often tell my clients, look, it's easier for me to keep you out of trouble than it is to get you out of trouble.
Wow.
So, get that expert advice on the front of the deal, and if nothing else, buy the forms from an attorney, have them custom drafted, make sure that they adequately protect the interests of both parties and allocate the rights and responsibilities, which is all a contract can do. And a contract is only as good as the person on the other side of it.
Yeah.
You know, contract's kind of a roadmap, but you got to drive your own car. Anyway, this fella had this house. He decided he wanted to sell it to Matt. Matt sent me the contract. I looked at it, and it was a very poorly drafted document. It wasn't a very good contract. It was a contract for deed that we just explained, and it was missing a couple of protections for the seller. One of which was, of course, when we talked about this in the last video, that'll bring you up to speed. It did not have a due on sale clause, which is a paragraph in the contract that simply says that if the buyer of the house sells his interest in the house, then he has to pay off the existing loan, and that's standard in every mortgage everywhere. It didn't have that, and then they also have what's known as a prohibition against assignments of the contract. It's kind of like no subleasing or no subletting on an apartment lease. This one, it says that the seller can't assign their interest in the contract. In other words, they have to stay with the contract. And if they do assign it, it triggers the due on sale clause. They got to pay off the existing loan and then get their own financing or bring their own money to the table. This particular contract didn't have either one of those. So I was able to tell Matt that yes, you can buy it from the guy, and you don't have to pay off the note. In this particular situation, because of the way that contract is worded, Matt was able to step into the shoes of the buyer and take his place and actually just assume his deal. So it was like an assumable mortgage, in that he was able to buy it from the guy, and we used an assignment of the contract and then assignment of the promissory note, and the entire bundle of rights that the seller had by signing that dotted line and taking the money was transferred over to Matt. So now Matt's in that guy's shoes. And then he called the lady and said, I'm your new buyer. I bought that contract for deed from the guy that used to have it, and now I have the same deal that he did. And I think it'd be a great idea if we did new paperwork on this deal on the same terms and put it in a more conventional mortgage, and use the deed of trust and a warranty deed with a vendor's lien and a new promissory note. In other words, the standard Texas mortgage documents.
And that was Matthew's advice. That was Matthew's advice. And in fact, Matthew sit down with the seller and advise the seller why it makes sense for us to make sure that we tie up a lot of loose ends that were not tied up in the original contract paperwork. Basically, adding the due on sale clause and several other.
Making sure that it was just the standard mortgage document.
Right.
The main thing, though, that it did, of course, I was Matt's representative, Matt's advocate, and my oath is to zealously advocate for my client's best interest within the limits of the law. And so, fulfilling that role, the key thing for Matt on having the new documents is that he was able to acquire the equity in the home.
Correct.
And that's the value of the house less what's owed on it is the amount of money that you get that Matt would have. Now, under contract for deed, you don't build equity in the house. Basically, you're renting the place up until such time as you make the last payment, and then you can claim the deed, and then you acquire the equity. But during the pendency or the life of the note, the life of the loan, you really don't build any equity because they can evict you, you go away, and you don't take your equity with you. You lose all your payments. Now, that's not a very good position for the buyer to be in because you can't leverage the home. You can't, you just don't have that money. So in this particular situation, that note had been paid down quite a bit. That we won't use actual figures, but I mean, for example, there was $50,000 owed on the note, and the house was worth $100,000. And so in order to capture that equity, we needed to do new documents, a conventional mortgage, where Matt was able to acquire the equity of the home by repapering the transaction. It's the same deal, but we used a normal mortgage on it, and Matt was able to not only have the right of possession and the right of ownership, which he had under the contract for deed, but he also owned the equity in the house, which is portable. He could take it with him. You could you could borrow money against the house. You could sell the house. You own the equity in the home. You could put that on your financial statement now and say, I have $50,000 equity in the home because it's worth $100,000 and there's $50,000 owed on it. So Matt was able to acquire that equity And then the seller, of course, transferred that equity, but not without good reason. Under that contract for deed, they had a lot of exposure to potential litigation because they didn't do it right. There's a lot of consumer protections built into contract for deeds here in Texas, where you got to make consumer disclosures. You got to give them the right of rescission. That is to say, they can undo the contract after a few days. And the law is very specific about these protections. They have to be in bold-face type, 14-point type, and has to have certain language in the thing, which was totally absent from this one. And then it also requires that no, I'm losing my train of thought.
Well, no. I'm glad that you mentioned about the consumer protections, because you know, those consumer protections, so that you guys are aware that these consumer protections are just not slaps on the wrist. And I think it's important that we go into detail and let's talk about some of the penal. Let's go into just like really high level penal, some disciplinary actions that can take place for negligence on either party in on these contracts if you're not using legal counsel and create these contracts correct from the beginning.
Yeah, that's where I was headed before I derailed in my senior moment. The contract for deed also has in it a requirement for an annual accounting. In other words, the seller each January the seller has to provide to the buyer an accounting of the contract for deed, how many payments they made, how many payments remain, how much principal and how much interest they've paid, and the amount of the payments. And in other words, a precise and exacting accounting of exactly where they stand in the note. And if that annual accounting is not delivered, then by statute a civil penalty kicks in, about $500 a day for every day that the accounting is not delivered.
Wow.
That's been limited by the 2-year statute of limitations, so you can't go back the entire life of the loan. But still, $500 a day for 2 years. That's a lot of dough, and in this case, it would have been just about what was owed on the house. So they had a lot of exposure. They never made an accounting, and they didn't have their consumer protections in there. Also, if you're a native Spanish language speaker, then it has to be written in Spanish. These contract for deeds were used a lot in the Colonias in South Texas, and there's a large Latino population there that was being taken advantage of by sellers and landowners, and so to reform that exploitation and that abusive system down there, while they passed a lot of onerous laws on the contract for deed here in Texas that applied to the entire state. And these consumer protections, they provide for severe penalties for failure to comply with them. And so they had making a misstep every step of the way on this deal. Their contract didn't include any of those things. They hadn't performed what a seller is obligated by law to perform under it. Now, we never threatened to sue these guys.
Absolutely not.
And certainly didn't even occur to us. It would have, but in this case, we bought peace instead of paying a wage war, and that's oftentimes a better approach to take in a legal situation where these folks, they just wanted their payments to come in on a regular basis. This guy had quit paying; he was late. They didn't foreclose. They didn't evict him. So Matt heard of his troubles and bought the guy out of it. Everybody walked away happy. Matt got the house at a really great price. He got the equity in the home.
Yes.
The seller got some cash for his end of it, and the buyer starts getting their payments back, their income stream back again. And they sort of depended on that money. They needed it. So now they're receiving their house payment again, and you own the house, but you're now the record owner. You own it in fee simple. It's not fee simple absolute, but it will be when you've completed your obligations under the note and pay it off.
Correct. So basically, what happens is that they actually under the new contract, they're actually just the mortgager, and I am the mortgagee. That's correct, right?
Mortgager and mortgagee.
Mortgager and mortgagee.
Mortgage is a French word. It comes from the root word mort, which means death. So you pay till you die.
You pay till you die. So the great part about it is that we've captured the equity, and we own the property fee simple. So
and it's going to cash flow.
Oh, it's cash flow.
The payment is about half what it'll rent for.
Yeah.
And so not only do you have the equity in the home, you've got an income producing property. As soon as it's rented, you'll be making some cash every month on that house.
Well, that's kind of the formula that I teach. If you go back and watch my videos, this is exactly what my formula is, and what it is finding homes that is that are undervalued.
And they can be distressed physically,
correct,
or they can be distressed legally.
Correct.
And this home was distressed legally. And the way you find them, it's like, oh, okay, it's a great deal. You know, we understand how it works now. You know, how the heck do you find those? Talk to your neighbors.
Yep.
Get out in the area you want to buy in. Talk
yep.
to people. Make some friends. Make some new contacts. Find out what their situation is. You know, people will tell you their troubles.
Yeah, absolutely.
And behind those troubles, there's usually a need for money. And you know, somebody says they're buying a house on a contract for deed and they want to move. Oh well, they don't know what to do. You know, make them an offer, and they might just pop off and say, yeah. You know, I mean, you lowball the guy, right?
Can't hurt to ask.
You know, all they can do is say no.
All you can say no.
Yeah. So Matt did a really good job there in finding and securing the deal, and then he did the right thing and made sure what he was doing was legal, and made sure it was above board, and made sure that we didn't make any missteps, and that his capital would not be put at risk. But, you know, I mean, it'd be terrible to give the guy all that money for his interest in the house, and then you can't buy it or can't own it, or the contract can't be assigned. But in this situation, the guy could sell it. So read those contracts, look at them, or find somebody that knows what they're doing and get them to read it and look at it. And you can find these deals. I mean, is it a unicorn deal? I don't know. They're pretty rare, but they're out there. There's a lot of them out there. A lot of people, especially with the internet, they download these forms and they cobble their own stuff together. We're in the age of the DIY, do it yourself, and so underqualified people want to save a buck, and the lawyers are expensive, so they save some money and they download the forms off the internet or go to the office supply and buy a contract out of a box, spend $4 and get a really bad contract. And so if you find one of those bad contracts, buy it and then fix it. So this house was a fixer-upper in that the paperwork needed fixing. The house itself's in great shape.
Oh, the house is great.
Clean. It's nice. Clean. You're not going to have to spend any money on it.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. Yeah,
give it a good cleaning, and it's made ready for rental.
Yeah,
and the house itself is in great shape. The title was a mess, or at least the contracts that were had wallpaper problems. In other words, we papered this transaction with new paper, and now it looks great.
Well, and it looks fair. Yeah, and with going into moving the conversation forward and going into the details of what the house consists of, I'm always transparent about my numbers when I make these videos, and want you guys to know these numbers because it's easy to do the same thing. For example, this property will cash flow roughly about $600 a month, and that's a tenant is going to pay down the remainder of the note.
The mortgage now.
The mortgage from where it stands. You're going to have a tenant in that property that's going to pay down the remainder of that mortgage, and you're going to cash flow $600 every month. You're going to also you're also going to receive the equity in the property. So there's several different ways you're going to make money. You're going to make depreciation value because now you can claim it on your taxes also. So you're going to be making money 3 different ways. You're going to take the rental income. A lot of people, when they process these deals or process property, they only think about a property. So if you mentioned that you have rent houses, they only process your monthly rental income from that property. No, you're completely forgetting about all of the equity that is in the home also.
The capital gains.
The capital gains. And it's the capital gains that can make you rich. Rental income too. I mean, monthly rental income, pays for everything, all of your expenses, all of your toys. But you have someone else that's gonna pay into that capital gain. That tenant's gonna pay into that capital gain. It's way more money you're gonna make on your 401k. Absolutely, just I mean, it's way more money you're gonna make monthly. I mean, it's a very, very, very wise thing to take in consideration of owning tangible assets for retirement. It's a very stable way of retirement, and
also they're a tangible thing you can drive by and look at it, and they're insured against hazards.
Yes.
So if the thing burns to the ground, it's insured. So it's guaranteed money, and the trend in real estate, it'll go up and down in value, but the trend is upward.
Generally upward. Since 1900, the general trend in real estate has increased consistently. Although there's minor dips, it has on an upward trajectory. It has consistently gone upward since the 1900s. It will continue to gain in value. Yeah. There's neighborhoods where there was homes that back in the 30s, those homes were $1,600, $2,000, and today they're $400,000, and that's the story of real estate.
That trend will continue.
That's the story of real estate.
And you look at it like in 30 years from now, that house will be long paid for by the tenants.
Oh.
It will have quadrupled in value. The rents will have gone up. And when you're an old man, that house will be worth a lot of money, and you'll have it.
Wow.
You can either keep the rent income, or you can sell it and have the money. You can leave a legacy to your grandkids. I mean, this is definitely a buy and hold property. This is not a flipper.
Wow.
And you know, I think you ought to hang on to it. It's a nice house.
Well, appreciate that.
And it's a really good deal.
And another thing I want to touch on is that, you know, when you come across these really great deals, it doesn't make sense to take that fast money. A lot of people are so, you know, interested in taking that fast money. If it take you an amount of time to find these really great deals, these goose that lay golden eggs, just keep the goose. You know, it'll always lay that golden egg. Just be nice. Love the goose. Love the goose, and it'll continue to give you golden eggs. But one of the things Matthew touched on is the insurance. You already pay insurance. So for example, most insurance policies now, especially like homeowner insurance and within that homeowner insurance, you have protected insurances that, you know, on other property that you may have, if someone were to fall and hurt themselves, that insurance from your current home will protect them in that injury. It's not a rare insurance is what I'm basically trying to say. Mm-hmm. But that's speaking about insurances. But, you know, first thing that I did, I'll tell you what happened yesterday. First thing I did yesterday, and I want to touch on this is about insurances, and you guys need to know this. There's about 6 or 7, let's say 10 major insurance companies. And I was speaking to an insurance broker, and he ran this by me, and I was wondering why I've recently been seeing this. But these major insurance companies, basically, every other year, there's another company that has the lowest rates. And these rates aren't low by like $100. Try like $400, $500 sometimes. And what happens is amongst these big 6 insurance companies, this year it may be Allstate, next year it may be Amica, the year after next it may be Geico. And I found myself going to these different insurance companies. Well, I'll tell you, this year is Geico. This year is Geico. Geico quoted me an insurance price on this home that is literally $700 less than the identical property I own next door. Yeah, that's it. So we're gonna have so shop your insurance, and this is no plug for Geico, unless Geico wanna. This can be a plug for Geico for sure.
Geico can sponsor you if they want to, you know.
Yeah, okay. And the second thing, which is extremely important, is home warranty. That is the second thing that I did yesterday. Is I called up my home warranty company. It's a yearly fee. It's a very small amount of money to get a home warranty on a property that covers everything that is interior of the house all the way to the street curb as far as replacing or maintenance. That's AC, heating, plumbing, all of those things that can happen in the home, and that'll be your issue.
If you got a home warranty and something breaks, call your home warranty people first.
Yeah.
They'll refer you to a repair technician.
Yeah.
Don't make the mistake a lot of people do. They'll call their own repair guy, get it done, and then try to send the bill to the home warranty people. They won't do that. They have their own contractors that they use. So be sure to let them know first. Need a new dishwasher? Call the home warranty people. They'll send their guys out.
Yeah.
Another thing too on this house too, and well, it applies to all homes, is that property taxes. They're quite high. They're a significant portion of your rent income. Mm-hmm. Here in Texas, you have the right to protest your taxes.
Yep.
I think that they come out. This tax appraisals come out in March or April, and you have 30 days. It's a narrow window to file what's known as a formal tax protest. And typically you've got to go down there either with a sales contract or an appraisal and show that your value is lower than their value, and they'll lower the thing, and you can save literally thousands of dollars a year on your property taxes. Now, in Matt's case, on this particular deal, he can go in there and show them that new promissory note and deed of trust and say, look, I bought this house for $50,000, let's say, and which is less than it's on the tax rolls for, and they're going to have to lower the value down to what he got into the house for, because that's what a willing seller would pay a willing buyer for that house. And And I strongly recommend, protest the taxes, show them those docs, and they'll cut your tax bill in half this year.
Yeah, you always want to protest those taxes. I do it almost every year, and they will try to raise taxes on you. But if you own, several houses on the same street, and you can just go in there and say, and you need to take the facts. They don't want to hear what you think. It can be.
They don't care about cracks and peeling paint and all that.
No, they don't want to hear those stories. The things that you think they want to hear, well, there's a shed on the property, and that shed need to be replaced or need to be taken off. They don't want to hear any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Just take the facts. The acquisition costs, the purchase prices, sale prices in your neighborhood.
Or an appraisal from a certified real estate appraiser.
Yeah, or a certified real estate appraiser.
A real estate appraisal is $400.
Yep.
I do these protests for people. I charge them $400. There's a couple hours to go down there and do it, and they pay $800, but I save them $6,000 or $8,000 on the taxes. So it pays for itself when you hire somebody to go down there and do it for you. But if you've got an appraisal that's less than 2 years old, you can carry that down there and show them what it is. Here in Tarrant County, they've got a computer program. It doubles everybody's taxes every year, and they only reduce the ones where people go and complain about it and fight it.
Yep. Well, they just bank on the fact that you're not gonna come and see them in person, and you're not articulate enough, or just won't spend the time. You don't have the time to come down and protest your taxes. It's always worth it.
And it's not a court of law. It's not a scary place. I mean, these are three people picked at large from the community. They're usually tied to the real estate industry. It's an informal panel. So many people protest taxes here that they put us in a warehouse full of Dilbert cubicles with folding tables and chairs, and you just sit down and talk to these three old geezers, and they lower your taxes.
Well, let's talk about some of the things you want to talk to them about. I'll tell you exactly how you do it. All you have to do is get the properties in your neighborhood that are valued at the same rate or less than what you purchased your home for.
That's available on the internet.
That are available. That's on Realtor.com. You can use Zillow. Zillow has AVRs, and they'll tell you what. All that information is public. Just print it out, and when you take it in there, just slide it across the table to them. And just stick to your points. Just stick to your points. As you see, my property is 1207. If you look at 1213, 1206, 1205, all of those properties were purchased within this amount of time for X amount of dollars, and their taxes are X amount, and I feel like my taxes are X amount also because it's the exact same floor plan, the exact same property. I don't see the evaluation that you guys are coming up with raising my taxes 10% or 7% or whatever the percentage increase is. And they generally lower your taxes because of those facts, and stick to the facts.
And if they don't lower the taxes, you have the right to either binding arbitration or you can sue them in the district court. And if you sue them in the district court, they'll lower it down to what you ask for because they don't fight those cases. They don't want to go. The tax man knows that they can't do any good in front of the jury, and so they'll settle it right away.
Yeah, and look here. Well, since it's a municipal thing, I don't have to do any clauses on saying we aren't going after you, Mr. Taxman. So we respect the taxman. All right. Well, I think that's been covered pretty thoroughly.
Those deals are out there. You can find them. Don't look just at the house. Look at the paperwork that's on it. And these things are public record. They're filed in the deed records. Learn how to look at your county records online and start reading people's purchase documents.
And if you guys want further information on this, feel free to shoot me a message. Comment on these videos. If you have any questions, if you just want to add a comment to it, go ahead. Feel free. Comment at the bottom. We love to we'll respond back to you pretty quick. If you want further details on how to find these deals, or you feel like there's a topic that you want me to go into details about, I'd love to do that for you. We want to know what you guys are thinking.
If you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe.
Yes, absolutely.
You can see new content as it comes out weekly.
Well, with that being said, this was an absolute fantastic conversation. I think it was a great time to have it. And anything you want to add?
Let's see. You can follow the Matt Savage Show on Instagram and on Twitter and on Facebook. If you Google the Matt Savage Show and look in the videos, you'll find links to these videos. I think your Twitter handle is at Matt. It's the Matt Savage S1. Your Instagram is matthew.savage.7549. Just in the search bar, you can just type the Matt Savage.
The Matt Savage Show, and it should
pull it up. And the same on Facebook. And of course, have a look at my food blog at thecurmudgeonskitchen.com. I'm plugging my new book, and I recently made a post about making beeswax candles.
It is a new book. There are some fantastic recipes in the book. It is a bunch of fun. You guys definitely want to pick this book up. It's on Amazon.
It's available on Amazon in paperback, 200 pages, full color. And it's also available as an ebook for $9.99, or if you have a Kindle, you can read it for free.
You want to try some of these recipes. I've had the great pleasure of indulging on Matt's recipes, and today we had some pumpkin pie.
And pumpkin pie.
And it's so good. It was so good. It make you want to twitch your feet. I mean, it's just it was really good stuff. So yeah. Buy the book, support. It's fun making these things, but we definitely want everyone else to be a part of this little community, this little thing we're doing. Please support, subscribe, like, and
smash that like button and leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing.
Yeah, let us know. Savage out. Thank you, Matt.
Yes, sir.
I enjoyed it, man.